The minimum wage bill is finally in the National Assembly. I'm Linda Kibi, and you're welcome to the Gavel. President Buhari has sent the eagerly anticipated minimum wage bill to the National Assembly. The president is proposing a minimum wage of 27,000 naira for government workers. That's an increase from the 18,000 naira minimum wage. Federal lawmakers in the Senate and House of Representatives immediately began work on the minimum wage amendment bill and passed it through second reading after a debate in both chambers. From the debate, we get a sense that some lawmakers are not on board with the proposed 27,000 naira, instead calling for the amount proposed by the Nigeria Labour Congress, that's 30,000 naira minimum wage.
For months, organized labor has been agitating for an increase in the minimum wage for Nigerian workers. The sum of 18,000 naira is the minimum wage for Nigerian workers. They employed several tactics to achieve their demand, ranging from negotiations, industrial action, and threat of more industrial action in the form of strikes. After months of intense negotiations and back and forth between labor and the federal government, a tripartite committee made up of organized labor, government, and the private sector reached an agreement on a minimum wage of 30,000 naira. President Buhari promised to send the minimum wage bill to the National Assembly for amendment to reflect the new baseline wage.
The purpose of this letter.
On Thursday, January 24th, the Deputy Senate President read a letter from President Buhari informing the Senate on the federal government's decision to increase the minimum wage of Nigerian workers.
The purpose of this letter is to forward to you for legislative action a new minimum wage bill to further amend the National Minimum Wage Amendment Act 2011 in order to give a new national minimum wage of 27,000 naira per month to the lowest paid Nigerian worker from the current 18,000 naira per month.
Senate Majority Leader made a request to his colleagues concerning the minimum wage bill.
This is a very, very, very important and critical bill, and I therefore feel that this Senate should give it a very expeditious passage, and that requires suspension of Order 79 so that we take the first and second reading immediately and refer it to the relevant committee, which is our Committee on Labour.
First reading taken.
The request was granted and the debate on the minimum wage bill commenced.
For us to also put our voice and our thumbprint and to see the realization of it. Nigerian workers have lived for decades under wages that are unable to address their basic needs and also basic wants. It is, to us, 30,000, if we are going to be realistic, is even not enough. But it's a step forward. If we will be able to pay our workers this money, I believe that productivity will increase, and also there will be a reassurance of services on the side of the workers.
I ask myself a question. What could 18,000 do in feeding a family of 2? Not to talk of a family of 4. And I see nothing. I also have asked myself a second question. What can 27,000 do in the life of a family? And I say not much. It is just that half bread is better than chin-chin. As we go along, there is a need to keep reviewing the scheme. We will definitely work hard on this and ensure it's passed. But Mr. President, there are issues. It's an election year. And we shouldn't allow this go down as one of those gimmicks for election. Most of the states are not capable of paying these 27,000.
Most of the state governments that were saying they cannot pay 30,000 naira minimum wage, I found it extremely difficult to understand. Judging even from the number of former governors that are being arraigned at EFCC every day for billions of naira, that simply indicates that they do not know how to apply the resources of this nation. Or they are rather so greedy and accumulating this wealth rather than looking at the welfare of other people. Even though this bill is late, I do commend the National Assembly, especially the Senate, for taking steps to quickly accelerate the process of the bill. To my mind, if not the fact that we have had too many bills coming back from the President without assent, I would have suggested that we can do the third reading today.
If with time, this is a bill that has been transmitted to us, we still have the opportunity, even though the Council of State have done something. If we look at it in the wisdom as wise men and women in these chambers, I feel that this is not enough for the civil servant. I think we should try and see what we can do to be able to, be able to advise, so that they will be happy, because we don't want a situation tomorrow. They will go to the roads, they will go to the streets, and then be able to start, asking for more minimum. So I think that for me, just like Sheikh Sani said, if we can be able to manage and meet up with that 30,000 naira as a minimum wage, Mr. President, I don't see anything wrong with that, because this country is rich.
There's no way we can get developed without a contribution, real contributions of our workers, and to be able to have the best and best out of them. There's no way we can do away with motivating them. Well, this is not even motivation. It's a question of survival. It's an issue of survival, because they need to survive before they can put in their best. They can bring out their best. And when somebody is hungry, how do you expect that person to really do the best he can? He cannot do that. So, therefore, we need to look inwards. State governments need to look inwards in making sure that they generate more money for themselves so that they can pay workers what is due to them. So also the private sector.
Mr. President, if there is any time in this country that the workers requires upliftment in their salary structure, Mr. President, it is now. Why am I saying that? You walk through our streets, you'll see that the Nigerian workers, and indeed the populace, is under stress financially in order to meet up their present daily needs. So, reviewing the salary structure upward from 18,000 to 27,000, like some of my colleagues mentioned, is a deserved demand by the workers.
All the lawmakers who spoke supported the bill, but some called for caution as well as amendments of the bill.
And average families in this country can spend more than 1,000 and they are still not satisfied. So I believe that in implementing, we must not increase the wage bill across the board by 50%. Once you do that, then your wage bill becomes too big for you to pay. Because that is really why people are running away from paying the basic minimum wage that can take people home. If you calculate now, for instance, that the increment now is 9,000, and to start with, you give everybody additional 9,000, the total wage bill will not become big. But if you insist on 50% increase, I can assure you that many states will be unable to pay the minimum wage. We appeal to the state governments and everybody to look at the manner in which it is implemented critically, so that you don't just come and create a bogus wage bill that you cannot pay, and then we'll create a new problem all over in the country.
On account of the importance of this bill, we will be constituting an ad hoc committee that will give it a speedy consideration and also interface with the relevant stakeholders and be able to give us a well-considered report. So because of that, I believe that what has been said so far will suffice in guiding the ad hoc committee. But just for purpose of emphasis, let me say that the minimum wage proposed by the government for us to pass is 27,000 naira. There were news reports of 27,000 naira for the states and 30,000 for the federal government. So, but what we have before us is a single national minimum wage of 27,000. So there's no discrimination between the federal workers and state workers. That point must be made clear. The other issue of concern to me, and I believe to many other people, is the exemption to organizations or establishments employing less than 25 persons. So if that scares true, and I hope it do not, that means that a whole number of our workers will be outside the minimum wage bracket.
The minimum wage bill passed through second reading, and the Senate set up an ad hoc committee to work on the bill and report back in 2 weeks.
To prescribe a national minimum wage for workers and further matters connected therewith, second reading taken.
The point that must be addressed. Whip. Then we'll go to Professor Moji.
The minimum wage bill also came up for consideration in the House of Representatives. But it appeared that some lawmakers are not content with the 27,000 naira minimum wage.
We have read in the media that the federal government has said it will pay a minimum of 30,000 naira. But what this bill, which if it's passed, provides is that 27,000 naira is the minimum wage. It means local governments, state governments, and the federal government cannot pay less than 27,000 naira. So we can pay higher. So the federal government has decided that for its own workforce, it will pay higher than the 27,000 naira minimum wage. And in determining who can be exempt from obeying this law, it is corporations or business firms that employ persons that are less than 25 in number. If you employ, let's say, 5 workers, 10 workers, you may not implement the national minimum wage law as amended if we pass this.
We need to stand up for once. We are out here. We have all kinds of workers, domestic servants, and all that. If we speak the truth, who is paying anything as little as the so-called 30,000 minimum wage? If you do that to your driver, then whatever happens to you on the way, you alone will know how to deal with it. And yet you say that is what we've been talking about for the past 2 years. And now the bill comes out. We are talking about 27,000. Mr. Speaker, 30,000 will be what this House should pass. And I'm commending it to those who will work on it at committee level.
But I wish this House, Mr. Speaker, should write before the public hearing so that we can see the table they wanted to adopt in terms of increase in this salary. Where we did not, Mr. Speaker, we are living the same trouble that will now emerge by the most senior officers in the public service, because even if I'm a senior officer, I will not agree. You increase 30,000 to my next junior level, I may be in level 6 and in that 30,000, and you have increased that amount, which is 27,000 as a minimum wage, to somebody who will meet me as a level 6 officer and is a level 3 officer. I will not agree with that. So for us to solve the problem, we need to see the table of the increment at the various grade levels.
The House of Representatives also passed the minimum wage bill through second reading and set up an ad hoc committee, which is to hold a public hearing on Monday, January 28th.